Hello again, everyone. I'm Errol Barnett at the CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City on this breaking news this morning. Moments ago, President Trump said, quote, with a high degree of certainty, end quote, authorities have now the Charlie Kirk shooting suspect in custody. Listen.
I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. You know, getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. You know, it's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But, yeah, I think we're in great shape.
Mr. President,
he's in custody.
Your suspicion was that he was radical left. And now you have more information.
And now let's bring in CBS News senior coordinating producer of crime and public safety, Anna Schecter, who is on the phone. Anna, as we're coming on air with this information from the president, I just want to fill out some more of what he was speaking to the Fox News anchors about as far as how this person was turned in. He gave a few details. He said this is all subject to change, but President Trump said a minister who is involved with law enforcement, a good friend with the top U.S. Marshal, got involved, got in contact then with the suspect's father, and then convinced him to have his son turn himself in. President Trump then said they drove into police headquarters, and he's there now. So President Trump saying that according to fresh information to him, the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination is now in custody. From your perspective, how does it sound like the information that investigators released, this footage we're seeing now, the images from yesterday led to this development today?
Well, we got more photos last night with a clearer image. We got footage of him running across the roof and climbing down from the roof. So last night at 10 p.m., law enforcement did not have this suspect in custody. So all of this has happened overnight and in the early hours of the morning. The pastor likely recognized those photos either earlier in the morning or potentially after those clear images were released later last night. But like we were saying earlier, just one tip makes all the difference. Law enforcement needed help from the public. That's why they went public with those images. In fact, they even delayed that. They could have sent those images out yesterday morning. They waited until a little bit later in the day, and that's what did the trick. I think for our viewers, people need to realize that the public's help in identifying suspects is crucial in cases like this, and that's exactly what happened.
And Anna, this time yesterday, you were here with me at the desk as we were digesting the first news conference from investigators, and it jumped out to both of us that while they said they had images, they had video, they had security footage, they didn't actually release it yesterday morning. They waited until about midday to release the images that we've been showing now. More video was released later in the day, and then we had news of this, I believe, $100,000 reward for information about that would lead to the apprehension of this suspect. How do investigators decide what to release and when, considering the politically charged moment we're in?
Well, they're weighing the pros and cons. So a calculation was made yesterday morning at that 9 a.m. press conference that you and I were monitoring. They decided that they didn't want the flood of misinformation, misidentifying people, because they were so confident that surveillance footage from campus from the minutes before the shooting was so good, was such high quality, they were going to be able to identify him. But guess what? They couldn't. And by about noon, a few hours later, they still didn't even have an ID on the suspect, let alone know where he was. And that's when they said, wait a minute, guys, we need to reevaluate. We need to put these images out. We need help from the public.
If you're just joining us, we're covering the breaking news that this hour, President Trump announced that investigators have a suspect in custody connected to the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is in Orem, Utah, where the shooting took place, and joins us now with an update on reaction there. Carter, this has all just happened in the past few minutes, so I'm not sure if you've had reaction yet, but speak to us about the dragnet that investigators threw out and how it seems to, at this point, have led to a development.
Yeah, I expect that a lot of people are going to be very happy to hear this news as they're waking up. It's about 6:30 in the morning here right now. We've got a news conference coming up in just about a half an hour on campus there, where we're going to find out a lot more details about this arrest. But as you mentioned, the dragnet, I mean, there was a tremendous number of resources poured into this investigation, searching for this individual, canvassing. We talked about 7,000 tips came in. They followed up on all of them. That takes a lot of manpower. They interviewed more than 200 people, and they were also getting video and pictures uploaded by people who thought that they might have captured something on their home surveillance cameras. And they say they got as many videos uploaded as they did during the Boston bombing back in 2013. So they had a lot of information to work with. But then we had that news conference last night where we were kind of here at the scene expecting to hear news about progress in the investigation, possibly a name of this individual. We did not hear that last night. Instead, we got more surveillance video, which you showed, showing that individual on top of the roof where the shots were fired from, jumping down. And then we saw these still images of that individual. Now, those images had been released earlier in the day, but they were a little bit blurry. You could still get a very good look at this alleged shooter's face. He was wearing sunglasses. But when those enhanced images came out last night, I was thinking to myself, someone is going to recognize this guy. Certainly his family, if they see this picture plastered on TV all over the country, they're going to recognize this. Someone is going to find this guy soon, and it appears that is exactly what happened. Not sure of the timeline on how or when this happened, perhaps overnight. But as you said, the president just learned about this about 5 minutes before he went on air with Fox News. So he had very limited details himself, and we're looking forward to learning a lot more in about a half an hour.
That's right. On that point, Carter, President Trump said this is what he thinks. He says this is subject to change, but according to information that was given to him before he appeared on Fox News this hour, the suspect is in custody. And according to the series of events that President Trump lays out, a minister involved with law enforcement contacted the suspect's father and convinced them to turn him in. President Trump said they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now. CBS News senior producer for our investigative unit, Pat Milton, joins us now on the phone with what you're learning. Pat, what can you provide that helps us understand what's happening at this moment?
Yes, we have calls all out to our law enforcement sources, and we're trying to confirm what President Trump is reporting. We've had a couple of false starts, so we're trying to be very cautious. But it sounds from President Trump's reporting that they have a high degree of certainty that they do have the correct person in custody at this time. But we're trying to get that confirmed.
All right, Pat, we have just an audio issue with your signal. We'll try to correct that as soon as we can. But Pat Milton has reached out to her contacts in law enforcement to try and confirm what we've just heard from President Trump. At this early moment, we've only heard it from President Trump, and CBS News wants to confirm this through our official sources. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us from the White House with what's new there. Natalie, help us understand why President Trump was here in New York this morning and how he came to appear on a cable news channel in announcing this development.
Yeah, the president traveled to New York from D.C. yesterday afternoon. He attended the Yankees game, had this interview with Fox News this morning where he made this breaking news announcement saying with a high degree of certainty we have the suspect in custody now. Again, as you mentioned, we are still waiting for official confirmation, but the president breaking this news on Fox News, also talking about his relationship with Kirk, almost like a family member. That's something that we've been talking about since this happened, just the closeness between Charlie Kirk and this White House, especially given Kirk's influence and role that he helped to play during campaign season, and not just the last presidential campaign, but in ones prior, in mobilizing the youth vote and as serving as such a close ally and advisor to President Trump, and also to Vice President J.D. Vance, who he had an extremely close relationship with. So close that J.D. Vance flew yesterday to Salt Lake City to retrieve Kirk's body and then deliver it home to Arizona yesterday on Air Force Two, with Kirk's wife there as well, greeted by supporters in Phoenix, and that's where he will be laid to rest. The president yesterday telling reporters that he expects he will attend the funeral. But of course, as there's been this outpouring of grief, shock, and horror here at the White House, this intense investigation has been underway. And the most details that we have about the latest developments come from the president himself in announcing a suspect in custody, according to the president, saying that his federal law enforcement worked with local police, the governor, that everyone in Utah did a great job. And he also announced that somebody close to the suspect turned him in. We know this followed that outpouring of tips that were called in to local and federal authorities, around 7,000 tips, according to the latest reporting we had. But again, what we are hearing is coming from the president himself. A lot more reporting still to be done. But again, you could really hear in the president's remarks today and yesterday when he paid tribute to Kirk at the 9/11 memorial over at the Pentagon. This was like a family member to him, so much so that he's also going to be giving Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. That's the highest civilian honor, Errol.
And you also have Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace moving to have Kirk lie in honor in the Capitol, just to underscore how significant conservatives feel that Kirk was to their dominance during the last election. And we made a point about President Trump announcing this during an interview. I just want to add some of the caveats that he mentioned. He says he says this could change. And the anchors pressed him on whether or not there was any ideology evident from the suspect, and the president did not want to elaborate on that. He avoided answering that question, and he says officials will be able to announce all of this later on today. Natalie, could you tell us where we will expect to see the president the rest of the day?
The president is heading to his home at Bedminster, where he's expected to stay for the weekend. Again, it's typical that he travels to one of his other properties on the weekend. And again, it's unique that he was in New York yesterday for the Yankees game, following attending a 9/11 remembrance here in D.C., and then for this big Fox News interview. One other note, given that in the wake of this, we are hearing about elected officials and lawmakers canceling political events that they had scheduled for this weekend, especially the fear of any outdoor events. The president asked about just the overall violence and climate of political violence, and he said we have to go on. But obviously everyone over on Capitol Hill, anyone thinking about holding big events, are now rethinking their own security plans and having to postpone events just because of the fear of what happened on Wednesday.
Natalie Brand joining us from the White House with the latest there. Natalie, thank you.